Hey guys, it's Tori, and I am going to start this first vlog of November with what I'm reading. It is November 3rd, so it's been a couple days, but I honestly haven't read very much because the 1st of November, I just wanted to give myself a break from reading, honestly, after Victober. Victober was great. I loved it, but I just did need a day to just not read really anything, so I gave myself that on the 1st, and then yesterday, the 2nd, I honestly didn't read all that much. I read part of Middlemarch, which I'm doing a separate vlog on, so I probably won't be discussing it too much in this, maybe briefly. Suffice it to say I'm liking it so far. But I did read only a few pages of the other book I'm reading, and I haven't even started an audiobook yet. But anyway, the other book I'm reading that I probably will talk more about in this vlog is Elantris by Sanderson. I am literally 3 pages in. Like, I have not read hardly anything, but it does kick off pretty fast with some pretty intense things going on. So very excited already about this. It has such a, I don't know, Sanderson's writing style, while it's not like amazing, it's also like very engaging to me. Like, I really like his, like, especially when he waxes very fairy tale-esque in his descriptions of the land and of things going on, the history of the world. I like when he waxes more fairy tale-esque, and that's kind of what this book starts with, describing Elantris as a city and what has happened with it. The prologue in this is basically just describing what Elantris was like in the past and what it's like now, and I really liked that part. I mean, like I said, I'm only 3 pages in, so I really don't have strong opinions necessarily, but I am like already drawn in, so that's really good. Hopefully that will continue, who knows, but it is good so far, and I will be updating you primarily on this, probably in this vlog. This will be the focus because it is pretty long, and Middlemarch is also pretty long, so reading some chunky ones right now. As far as audiobooks go, I just have wanted to, similar to like wanting to take a break of reading in general, I just wanted to take a break from audiobooks and kind of listen to music a little bit more, some booktube videos, some true crime stuff, and I may continue that through the rest of this week. I'm not 100% sure. I also was planning to start The Body Keeps the Score as my first audiobook, but I think I might actually do How to Be a Tutor by Ruth Goodman, because that's more what I'm in the mood for right now, honestly. So I'm not 100% which one I'm gonna start, but I think I'm leaning towards that one right now. When am I gonna start it? That is the other question I don't know the answer to. I will just have to find... I'm starting to get more in the mood to want to listen to it, so hopefully either tomorrow, maybe Saturday, or maybe I will just wait till Monday, I don't know, and just let myself do other things, listen to other things. Anyway, we'll just see what happens. So that is the start of my reading month. I will be taking you along with me, like I mentioned in my Victober wrap-up. I probably won't really be doing wrap-ups anymore, so this is where I will be discussing books, and it should be great. I'm very excited about it. So anyway, that is all I have to say for now. I will see you in the next clip. Hello, it is November 9th, Wednesday, and I am currently not very far at all into Elantris. I am just under 100 pages at 90 pages. I'm gonna read more today. I just have been mostly focused on Middlemarch, and then I also, like I mentioned, I think in my first clip in this vlog, I really don't want to rush reading too much this month, and I don't want to overwhelm myself with things. So that being said, I should say, it's also taken me a little bit to get into this, frankly. It was a slower start. Part of the issue, I think, was just I didn't really know where this was going. I mean, I assume we want to figure out what happened to Elantris as a city. Why did everything go so wrong in this city? Why did it become, like, diseased? And so I knew that was probably going to be part of the plot, but we weren't really getting there very fast, which is not a bad thing. I like some slow moving books because I think it can build things up in a way that makes me care about it more. But I'm not gonna lie, the beginning of books just tend to be a slog for me anyway. Like, starting new books, I know a lot of people are like, the first chapter, the first page, whatever, is like my favorite part. Like, I love getting into a new world and stuff. I am an endings girl. Like, once I get to like halfway through, then I usually fly through most books I read. But the first half, just getting to know everything, it just ends up being slow for me. Not that I dislike it, I love reading, but it just is the case with things, and especially something like this where it is a very slow build. I've been struggling a little bit, but I think I've reached a point where I'm a lot more like, I know what our three perspectives are. I know about them. I feel connected to each of their storylines. I will say Hrathen, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but he's probably my least favorite perspective. But even his perspective with this last chapter that I read from his perspective is gaining a little more momentum for me. So anyway, I think right now my favorite perspective is Raoden, but that possibly could be because he's actually in Elantris, which that's not a spoiler because it's literally the first chapter is him having to go into Elantris. So anyway, he's in Elantris, and so it's a little more interesting to see. He's figuring things out a little bit faster, whereas Serene and Hrathen are doing their own thing that feels very separate right now. Connected, obviously, because they're right by Elantris, like they're right around the city. So there's a connection there, but it kind of feels a little bit to the side. Whereas, yeah, Raoden, he's right at the heart of it. So that, I will say, I'm liking him the most. Serene, I am gonna have to take some time to see if I end up liking her, because right now, I don't know, she's not my favorite female by Brandon Sanderson. I will say Brandon Sanderson, I don't dislike the way he does women, at least he's not, you know, overly focused on their breasts in his descriptions. But, in fact, I don't know if he mentions their breasts ever in his descriptions. But, I don't know, just sometimes the personality of some of the women in his books, it just takes me a little bit of time to get used to it. And I think because this is so, like, more recent books by him, I've liked more, like, Stormlight Archive. I really like Shallon. I know not everybody does, but I do. I think she's really interesting. I can understand why people get annoyed with her. I get annoyed with her too, but I still just like her. And, oh, what's the other woman's name? Navani, I think, in Stormlight Archive. I like her. So he definitely has improved over time. I like Vin and Mistborn. So maybe it's really just this one, frankly. There's like a feeling that goes along with the way he approaches women, though, that I have noticed on some level in his other books, but I usually get past it. So I'm hoping that will be the case with this, that I kind of get used to her and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I like her. But right now she just, I don't know, I just feel like I don't know how I feel about her. Like, I like her, but I also feel like I'm not very attached to her yet. Maybe that's what it is. I just don't really feel invested in her as a person. I'm interested in her storyline, especially with her connection with Raoden and stuff. I'm very curious to see how things go with her, but her personality is just not necessarily speaking to me yet. So anyway, first 100 pages of Elantris out of like 630. So a long way to go in this one. Just a little under a sixth of the way through on that one. Hopefully I can pick up the pace this next week. Partially because I do have another plan for reading. I don't think I'm going to get to my physical nonfiction this month that I had planned. Unfortunately, I am, however, listening to audiobooks of nonfiction, so still participating in Nonfiction November that way. The one I just started yesterday is The Body Keeps the Score by, I cannot for the life of me remember this man's name ever, but it's like Bjorn, maybe something. I'll put the cover here just so you can see that. Anyway, so I'm listening to this, and I am really, really liking it. It's about basically just how trauma impacts the body, and I think ways we can like take care of our bodies that can help with that trauma. Not 100% sure on that. Right now it's just kind of in the beginning stages where the author is discussing his own journey with learning about PTSD and other types of trauma. It seems like this has been a topic that he's been heavily involved in researching over the past several decades. I think he starts off talking about the late 60s, maybe early 70s, where he first started working in the psychology field after getting his degrees and stuff. And just, yeah, kind of his experiences. He started off with working with veterans from Vietnam and just discussing what he saw there and discussing how he really could not find any information about this whole what was happening, this shell shock or whatever they called it at the time that was going on with these men, and he literally could only find one little book in his library that was by a man who wrote it just after World War II and was describing very similar symptoms and situations to what the author was seeing with these veterans. And so anyway, he's gone on, I think he's gotten up to the 90s now, where he's discussing kind of what he started learning as more understandings about the chemicals of the brain came into play and medication, as well as them learning the differences between like schizophrenia versus PTSD and things like that, because it talks about how for a long time people with PTSD would have been diagnosed with schizophrenia because that was just the closest diagnosis they had at the time. So anyway, all that to say, I am really, really liking that one. I haven't listened to very much of it, but what I have listened to, like I said, I'm really enjoying. So anyway, that is what I'm listening to / Middlemarch when I'm not able to read my chapters for the day physically, which has been mostly this week. And I think tomorrow I'll have technically time to do it. But I have other plans tomorrow that I'm very excited about that I would rather focus on than reading Middlemarch physically. So I'll probably just listen to the audiobook for that until I get through my chapters for the day, and then listen to The Body Keeps the Score, or maybe even a podcast. I'm kind of behind on some of my true crime podcasts, so I might do that. That's where I'm at with reading. My plans tomorrow will actually involve you and this vlog. I am going to go book shopping at this really cool bookstore that I recently learned about. It's like a 30-minute drive from my house, so it is a little bit far away. However, my job is on the way. It's my day off technically, but I think it's supposed to be every first Thursday of the month, but my manager's been out of town. So this Thursday, tomorrow, we are having a leadership meeting, and I'm one of the supervisors, so I need to be there, and usually he does it on Teams, so I could just like watch it at home, but because it's on the way to the bookstore, I figure I may as well just go to the meeting because it's at 12:30, so that gives me the morning to do whatever I end up doing, sleep in, and then whatever. And then I'll go to that meeting, and then I can drive further up north of my house to this bookstore, which sounds so cool. It's called Marissa's Books. One of my friends from college lives right by it, and she was mentioning it. And it's basically in an old car mechanic shop. So like there's all these, like where the garages were, it's all been filled in. There's not garages anymore, but it's still a big open space, and apparently it just keeps going. Like it's just really big. So anyway, I'm really excited to check it out. I kind of want to do a vlog. I've seen this idea a lot, and it's not like it's a groundbreaking idea anyway, but it is fun, and I just haven't really been in a position where I could do it, but I feel like I probably could now. Should I? That's up for debate, but I'm probably gonna do it anyway, where I buy books based on the cover. Just if they're a nice looking cover, judge a book by its cover, buy it, and then read it and see how it goes. It is a used and new bookshop, so I'll probably try to focus more on the used books since those will be cheaper. And I mean, I'm not paying rent right now, but I do want to be saving money for, well, Christmas is coming up, but also just life in general. Like, I'm not here just to like spend whatever money I can just because I can. I want to be saving despite other activities and things I'm doing. So anyway, that all being said, I am excited to do it. I will, of course, if they have a book that I like really know I want, like if it's a classic or any other book that I'm like, I know about this book, I know I want it, and it's for a good price, probably will still just buy that. But I'm focusing on, I think I want to get 3 that are just based on the cover and then read those probably November, December. I'm going to probably film that as a separate vlog, my reading of them, but I'm going to include the bookshop experience in this vlog just because it just will work out better for me that way. So anyway, I'm going to end this clip here because it's already kind of long, and I will see you tomorrow once I head off to the bookstore. So I did go to that new bookstore and it was really great. I figured out it actually is really stressful to me to spend money on books that I know nothing about. So I'm going to Barnes & Noble because I need to look for something possibly for my mom's Christmas present, or at least ideas. Maybe I'll get a couple books there. I didn't spend that much at this one. I only spent about $20, which I'm using up some of my cash that I've kind of built up for this. So I have quite a bit left, so I could possibly find like 2 books at Barnes & Noble that I think are beautiful covers that maybe I know a little bit more about that I'm willing to buy. I just can't bring myself to spend money on things I don't know anything about. So anyway, I'm going to do that and we'll just see how it goes, and maybe this whole idea will be a flop, but at least I'll have taken you to the bookstore with me. Hey guys, I'm back from the bookstore as well as dinner with one of my friends from high school. It was really great to talk with her for a little while. As I mentioned in my last talking clip, I could not bring myself to spend money on books I didn't know anything about. Like, I just could not do it. It just, I hated the feeling. It just stressed me out too much. So now I know that's not something I can really do. Maybe if I had like a gift card or something, I'd be more willing to do it. But I just, there's so many books that I want to read that I already know about, and that's a lot that I already own. So I just couldn't bring myself to add to my shelves books that I didn't know anything about and might hate. So yeah, ditched that idea. But I did come up with another idea for a themed reading vlog. It's not maybe quite as fun, although I might just play around with it. We'll see. My next reading vlog will be themed somehow. That all being said, let me show you first of all what I got at that used bookstore. It was so cute. Honestly, like, absolutely adored it. Actually, I probably need to freeze these now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, what I got. I only walked away with one classic. There were other classics that were tempting me, but I was like, no, Tori, we gotta go to Barnes & Noble, possibly to get Mom's Christmas present, which didn't happen, but we'll get to that in a moment. So only if there's a classic that you absolutely know that you want, and maybe you haven't been able to find it very easily, then you can get it. And I did get one. So that one was East Lynne by Ellen Wood. This is a sensation novel from the Victorian period. Gosh, can I speak? And I have long wanted a copy, but all the copies I could find were a little bit higher than I wanted to pay, but this one was only $6. So $8, sorry, $8. But without shipping costs or anything. So I was like, you know what? We're just gonna get it. It's in decent condition. It is chunkier than I thought it was. I mean, it's a Victorian novel, so maybe I should just expect them to be pretty big. But I don't know. I was picturing something more along the lines of like Thomas Hardy or some of Elizabeth Gaskell's novels, but no, this is a chunker. So anyway, I have that now, which is very exciting. Then I actually got a couple of nonfiction books. So this one, it's kind of silly that I got this, but it was only $3, and I was like, it's just so cute, and it could be really interesting, and honestly, it could help with some research I want to do for a book that I'm pondering writing. It's very early stages. I have not been motivated to write for a long time, write fiction for a long time. I had done it a little bit, but I kind of gave up. I was like, you know what? I just like reading. It wasn't like discouragement or anything. It was just more like, I'd rather just read anyway. So I kind of stopped, but recently I've been kind of feeling it a little bit again. So that might happen. But anyway, I got this cute little book called English Castles, and it just goes through all of these castles in England and just a little bit about each one. It's not a lot. Literally everyone is like a page with a picture and then a brief kind of description about it, like when it was built approximately, things like that, where it is. And I just think it looked really cute and interesting. So yes, I got that little book. This next one you would have seen in my clip, and I'm just amazed that I found it because it's been on my Amazon wish list forever. and it's one that I think is out of print because I think it went into print in 93, and so it's been long enough that it's out of print, but it just looked so fascinating and exciting, and I was like, I just want this book. So I had it on my Amazon wish list. Never really knew if I was going to actually get it, but they had it in pretty decent condition in this store, and I was like, this is just a sign. I just have to get it, and that is Florence, the Biography of a City by Christopher Hibbert. And it's just like what it says. It's a history of Florence. I do not know very much Italian history, I'm not going to lie. I know about certain figures and some general aspects about it, but I haven't really in-depth looked into it. And the figures I do know about, I haven't studied in depth either. So very excited to have this and just to learn more about the city. There's some just beautiful pictures all throughout it. It's wonderful. So yeah, don't know when I'll read this, but I'm excited to have it. Whoever had it before me highlighted a lot. So anyway, yes, those were the 3 books that I got in that used bookstore, that new bookstore. It was such a cool bookstore. It was huge. It was a little bit overwhelming because of how big it was, but I made some solid finds. There were even some books that I thought about getting that I was like, maybe not, just not right now. But yeah, there were some really great things in there. So then, like I said, I went to Barnes & Noble, and part of this was because I'm trying to get inspiration for my mom's Christmas present. She's so hard to shop for because a lot of the things she'd want are a little bit out of our price range as children right now. We are all poor, so we can only do so much, and I'm probably the one, me and my brother are in the best position to spend money on our parents, but even us, we can only do so much. So anyway, she is one that a lot of the things she'd like are like kind of more on the expensive side, and just can't do it. So trying to figure out smaller things to get her is a little bit tricky, but I was going to see if I could get any inspiration. I didn't really, unfortunately, but I did go in there with a lot of money still in my wallet because I didn't spend that much at that first bookstore. So basically I wandered around, and I was at first being like, okay, maybe I will do, cover buys for this time, but I still couldn't do it. I just could not do it. I just could, especially there, I was like, I can't justify buying books that I'm not going to like for full price. Like, if I get a book for full price, it better be something either I know I really want, and maybe it's hard to find used, and so I'm just gonna get it new, or it's a new release. Most of the time it's a new release that I'm willing to pay full price for because I want to support the author. And, if I want to read it soon, like, I need to just get it at full price because I could wait till it comes in used in certain places, but that might be a while, and honestly it might still not be very cheap even at that point. So anyway, new releases is where I usually go. So I decided, based on that I would get a couple of newer releases, and that my next vlog possibly could be, again, I'm still thinking about it, I might do a different theme just with books I already have, but potentially I could do a vlog where I read some of the 2022 releases that I haven't read yet, which I have several. There's a couple that are on my list for a particular event challenge thing that I have coming up in December, which you'll see an announcement for very soon if you haven't already. I can't remember the order this vlog and that announcement video will go in, but anyway, so those ones are obviously off the table, but I got 2 today that I'll show you in a moment, and then I have at least 1 or 2 others that I got that are from 2022 that are not on part of that other challenge, so I could definitely read those for it. So not 100% sure that's what I'm gonna do. I might even just do like a cover, like choose books based on the cover and my mood, how the cover matches my mood or something like that. We'll see. I'll keep pondering it. After I finish Elantris, I'll probably just see what mood I'm in and what I'm feeling and go from there. But anyway, the books that I got from Barnes & Noble that are recent releases. First of all, I was able to get Ithaca by Claire North for 20% off, which is very exciting. This is one that is about Penelope, Odysseus's wife, and Ithaca, their home city. I think I only know of a couple people who have read this, and unfortunately they didn't have super high reviews for it, but I'm also not as picky as some people. Not that those people were necessarily picky. I just know that I don't give below a 3 stars very often, and 3 stars is at least enjoyable, just maybe not like that X factor that brings it higher. But anyway, I did get this, and it was like the one 2022 release that I knew I really wanted to get my hands on, so I'm glad I was able to. Then the second one technically isn't really a 2022 release, but it was originally released, I believe, in ebook format a few years ago, and then it's just recently been released in this hardcover edition, and that is Galatea by Madeline Miller. This is a short story about Galatea from Greek mythology, and I have heard great things about it, and I love Circe by Madeline Miller. If you've been on my channel for a while, you should know that. And when I saw this, I was like, well, I just have to. It's really cute, first of all, and it just is kind of a nice thing to have, just a nice, really short thing to read. And get through when I'm like, I just want to finish something really quick. So anyway, that's all I got. Like I said, not sure if those 2 books are actually what I'm going to read in my next vlog. I'm just really going based on my mood. But I can say that I'm excited to have those, and it was worth my money. That's the thing, is all of these books are books that I've wanted. The only one that was like kind of a spontaneous buy was English Castles. The rest of them were books that I've had on TBRs and wish lists for a long time. So, or at least since they've been out, like with these 2. So anyway, glad I got those, and we'll see what I end up doing for my next vlog. But this isn't the end of this vlog yet. I still want to finish Elantris. I am liking it. I read a lot more this morning and last night, and I'm definitely getting a lot more into it, which is good. Did not listen to The Body Keeps the Score today, although I did get through my reading of Middlemarch, which was great. So yeah, we're gonna end this clip here, and then we'll see when I next update you. Okay, I am going to make this clip so quick because I think tonight I'm going to finish Elantris. It is almost 11 o'clock, and I really probably shouldn't spend the next couple hours finishing this, but I'm sucked in. I got to about the 250 page mark, and I've just fallen for it. I am so in this. I just want to know what's going to happen and how everything's going to end up. I will say, if you've read this, I really hope Raoden and Serene end up in a good place. That's all I'm gonna say. If they don't, it won't ruin the book for me, but it might take it down a star or something, because just with all of the buildup, particularly Serene, but also Raoden, and just kind of their personalities and connection with each other, things better be good there. Rathan, I'm very curious to see where he ends up, because he is a very interesting character. I don't like him, but I don't think you're supposed to like him, but he is fascinating. So anyway, I'm going to probably finish this. I luckily don't have to go into work until 11:30 tomorrow, so I can sleep in a bit if needed. I did actually stay home from work today. I wasn't feeling very well this morning. Luckily, it's eased a lot, so I think I'll be good to go to work tomorrow, which is great. So yes, I am going to end this clip here. I just wanted to, before I finish this, I wanted to give at least some idea of my thoughts right now. Basically, I'm really liking it. It's so fun to be back in this sort of intense fantasy realm of reading epic fantasy. That's the word I was looking for. But anyway, I am loving this. It's kind of making me sad that I won't have any more Brandon Sanderson books in the Cosmere that will be like completely new to me. Like, I mean, I need to read Rhythm of War still, but that's the 4th in a series, so like I know the characters, which is still exciting. But it's kind of sad that I've gotten through like all of Mistborn. I guess I haven't read the 2nd trilogy of Mistborn books. I haven't read the Alloy of Law yet, so I do have that, I guess, which was good. But anyway, this is great, loving it, and I'm excited to see how this whole Cosmere thing comes together. I really hope, this is going to be a little bit dark, but I really hope that Brandon Sanderson lives long enough to do everything he is planning, because I just want to see where everything goes. I mean, he's young enough, he probably will be able to, especially with how fast he writes, but yeah, I'm really hoping he actually is able to accomplish what he's promised he's going to. I'm going to get to reading so I don't stay up too late. And I'll probably let you know my full thoughts tomorrow. Don't mind my pile of blankets and pillows behind me. I just wanted to mix up the background a little bit for this vlog. So, like I mentioned, actually 2 nights ago now, I finished Elantris by Sanderson. Loved it, adored it. And I ended up actually finishing it, not that night, but rather the next morning. Because I had been sick that day, and I was able to go into work later the next day, but I knew I was going to need to work if possible, so I wanted to get myself to sleep so that I could continue to let my body heal. So I ended up finishing it the next morning before work, and it just sent me on a Sanderson desire to binge. Like, I just want to binge read more of the Cosmere. I have read most of it, actually. There's just a few things I haven't read yet, but a lot of it's been several years, like even up to, I think 8 years is the longest since I've read at least one of them. And then there were a few others that I read around that same time within those same couple years. So it's been a very long time, and I really want to reread pretty much all of them that I've already read, and then obviously read the ones I have yet to read. So before I get too deep into that tangent, let me just talk to you about my final thoughts specifically on Elantris. I was really stressed. I got to this one point where I was really stressed. So I did something I really shouldn't do, but when there's a book this pacey that it gets me this pumped, I have a tendency, if I'm like really worried about something, to flick to the last page and not read it, but like scan it for certain words, like certain names and stuff. But I do it very quickly, so I don't read too much because I don't want to totally spoil myself. I just want to, like, in this case, I wanted to know if certain people were going to die. And I was like, okay, I am really stressed that one of these people that I don't want to die is going to die. And so I just had to look. I saw one of the characters' names that I really wanted to see alive at the end, but I didn't expect that person to die. I expected another person to die. And I saw this person's name that I didn't think was going to die, and the word grave, as in a grave. And I was like, oh no, please be someone else's grave. And so, like, literally the excitement drained out of me in that moment. I was like, I still wanted to finish, but I was like, if this ends that way, I'd probably still give it like 3.54 stars, but it would drop literally a whole star, maybe even a star and a half, because I ended up giving this 5 stars, and I was like, this is gonna be a 5-star read unless this happens, and then it's gonna crash and burn for me. And it didn't. We were good. There were people that died. That was really sad, but I'm trying to avoid spoilers. So basically, a person that I thought might die did not end up dying, and I was very glad. Even though some of the other deaths did make me sad, it still made the book work for me. Whereas if this one person had died, or another person, but I didn't ever expect that other person to actually die. Anyway, I just feel like I'm talking in circles. Basically, I was happy with the ending. Raoden continued to pretty much be my favorite perspective, followed closely by Serene. I really just liked Raoden's personality and approach to life. I like Serene's too. I just feel like her the focus of her part of the plot was a little less intriguing to me. That being said, it was still intriguing enough. And then Hrathen was my least favorite to follow, which was fine because he usually has shorter chapters anyway, so it was fine to get through. But I was still interested in him. Like, it wasn't that I wasn't interested at all. I found him a very interesting character, and he's probably the one that I have the most to think about with. So I do appreciate that about his character. I think, yeah, he's the most interesting to analyze and ponder on, whereas Raoden was the most interesting to follow for me. And Serene, like I said, followed closely behind Raoden. I can't be 100% sure, but there are certain creatures called Scions in this book that I think might be related in some way to creatures in the Stormlight Archive. I can't 100% say that. Maybe there's already theories out there about it, but there's just a similar feel to them. They're not the same creatures, but there's just a similar feeling about them that makes me wonder if maybe they are somehow related to each other, but we will see as the Cosmere continues on. Some other things I want to mention. There's this whole aspect to this story where the people who become Elantrians, who are kind of cursed with this curse that fell upon the city, part of their deal is that, I feel like this isn't too much of a spoiler because you find this out pretty much in the first chapter, but basically everything that happens to them pain-wise, like if they stub their toe or get a little hand scrape or anything like that, all of that, they don't die. They're not able to die unless you do like really intense things to them, but they will feel that pain at that same level as if they had just received that wound for the rest of their existence, which causes a lot of them to lose their minds, because not only that, they also feel hunger desperately. They burn through food faster, and in addition, they're not being fed because they're seen as like the undead, basically, so people don't think they need to feed them, and so they don't. But these creatures, I don't want to say creatures because they're people, they're still human beings, but they just have been changed and they still feel that hunger intensely. And so between the hunger and then any accumulating pain that they end up experiencing, like I said, they just end up losing their minds. And that whole aspect to this book, it was great. It was fascinating, but it just like made me cringe so much. Just imagining, like, I stub my toe all the time, okay? I don't know what's wrong with me. I think maybe it has something to do with me just not having good eyesight, because I run into things, I stub my toe. Anyway, and just imagining like stubbing your toe and then like forever after, like feeling that stubbed toe exactly how you felt it in the moment, not even like that little slow throb that eventually goes away. Like, it's just like right when you stub your toe, that's the feeling that's there. Ugh, that made me really cringe and so uncomfortable, but it's supposed to, like, it's a very interesting thing to think about. I just love Brandon Sanderson's world building. Another thing I wanted to mention that's just very brief is there's kind of this big bad in this book that we never get to see, and I just loved the way that was played with, because it's like he's a religious leader, and so he's like this big bad that is a religious leader and you never see him, and it kind of makes him feel like, at first you're like, oh, it's a person, he's just this king, but because you never actually see him and you just hear about him and all this power he's accumulating, it just makes him so much more, there's definitely this otherworldly feeling about him. And I know in the sequel to this that will eventually come out, originally this was written as a standalone, but Brandon Sanderson has announced that he plans to write 2 more and make this into a trilogy. And I believe the second one, from what I've read, is going to take place several years after this one, but it will still include characters, not the main characters in this one, but some other side characters from this one in it, and it's going to primarily take place in this kingdom that has been built up by this big bad that I mentioned. So I'm very curious to see how that goes whenever that is able to actually happen. Even though I gave it 5 stars, I do recognize some criticisms of it, just none of them bothered me, but I will mention them just because, you know, full review for this. First of all, the writing style, I mean, you can tell it's Brandon Sanderson's first published work. It's incredible. I don't think there's a lot of debut authors who would be able to pull something like this off in their first novel. It's just, he's just amazing at building fantasy plots and worlds. I could still tell based on the writing style and some of the characterization, it just felt a little choppy in places. And I mean, Brandon Sanderson's writing has never been something to like rave about, but even he has said like his purpose is just to write a story. His purpose is not necessarily to create lovely writing on its own. He just wants to give you the story, and so he kind of wants the writing to be a little more invisible so that you can just focus on the characters, the plot, all of that jazz. So because of that, his writing style is not necessarily amazing, but you can tell it grows smoother as he's gone along. I will also mention that I was warned before going into this by a couple people that it was a bit of a slower one. It was a bit of a slog for them, and I think one of them, maybe both of them DNF'd it, or I think David Wiley was one of them. I can't remember if he DNF'd it or if it wasn't his favorite. There was someone else, I think, that said they DNF'd it temporarily, but they hope to come back to it in the future. I could be wrong, but both of them pretty much said that it started off slow, and that was part of the problem, and I will definitely agree with that. This one was definitely slower. It took me until about the 250 page mark, and then once I hit that, I mean, the whole rest of the book was what I read that night that I made my last clip / the next morning, so definitely flew through the rest of the book. So it was just that first, like, I don't know, is that like a third maybe of this? It's 615 pages, so yeah, about a third. The first third was a bit slower, but I also was kind of not in a super big reading mood anyway, so that could have been part of it. But anyway, it did feel a bit slow, but I didn't care. I really don't mind slow books. I've never, in fact, on Storygraph, the one chart where it shows you like the pacing of the books you read, most of mine, over half of what I read, are slower books. So I don't mind slower books. I'm willing to wait on them. I'm willing to take my time with them, as long as they're like holding my interest well enough. As far as the characters are interesting enough, the writing's not annoying me, there's some reason that I'm willing to keep reading, then I will, which is why I don't DNF too much, because I'm willing to give books a chance, especially because I know myself, and I actually am not, like, starting any book is hard for me. Like, it does not matter what book it is. The first, like, depending on how long it is, I guess the first 50 to 100 pages for sure are difficult for me to get through, and sometimes really just the first half, and then the second half I end up flying through a lot faster, and that's with any books. So because I know that about myself, I'm willing to put up with a little bit of slow progress, as long as there's nothing in particular that's annoying me about it. All that to say, loved this. My critiques on it are valid, and what I've heard other people say about it are valid, but I just don't care because I just loved it enough that it wasn't an issue for me. So anyway, yes, loved this, and like I said at the beginning of this, it's put me in a big Brandon Sanderson mood. So I know I've mentioned earlier in this vlog that I was going to do a themed reading vlog for my next one, which I still might, but I actually might just read whatever still. And the reason for that is, first of all, my next book that I'm reading is The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden, because I need to finish this trilogy this year. I do not want this sitting on my shelves for another year after I read the second one, just like between the first and second books, because I just don't want that. So I'm going to be reading this next for sure. And I thought about keeping this in this vlog, but I think this vlog has gotten long enough that I'm going to move this to my next one. But I am kind of wanting to read through the whole Cosmere in publication order. Obviously not necessarily fast. I think I'm going to take the next year or so to do it, but I do think the 5th Stormlight Archive book is coming out in 2024. I could be wrong about that, but I think it is. I haven't even read Rhythm of War yet. The only things I haven't read are Rhythm of War, the Wax and Wane series, the second Mistborn series, and then I've only read one of the like novellas and short stories that are part of the Cosmere. Plus, I haven't read White Sand, the graphic novel series, just because I'm not a huge graphic novel person, but I'm willing to get over that because I do really want to reread everything I've already read, and then I want to read what I haven't read. The next thing in the Cosmere after this is a short story that takes place in the same world as Elantris, and I just ordered Arcanum Unbounded, which is a bind-up of most of the short stories and novellas, not including the 1 or 2 most recent ones. I can't remember if there's been a 1 or 2, but there's some that just are very recent that have come out that are not part of that bind-up, but I will get to those later on. Arcanum Unbounded actually includes, supposedly, I need to get it to make sure, but I've heard that it also includes the first volume of White Sand, which is, like I mentioned, the graphic novel series, so that will be nice to just automatically have in there. I honestly was considering not doing White Sand, but I just want to get through the whole Cosmere. Like, I want to know everything. So since I did just read this and I'm in that mood, I think I'm going to, once I finish Winter of the Witch, I'm for sure going to read the short story. Will I continue after that with Mistborn? The Mistborn trilogy is the next thing after that. I am not 100% sure. It will depend on my mood. I don't want to like force myself to read it or anything, but there's a strong chance because I'm just invested and excited about it. So anyway, I think I'm going to end this vlog here. Well, really quick, let me just mention, because I just haven't mentioned this whole vlog, and I kept meaning to and just kept forgetting, I'm also working on the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. I started this in June for Ancients-a-thon and did not finish, and then I just didn't read it for months because I was participating in other readathons and stuff, and then I was like, you know what, I really need to finish this. So I have been reading a chapter or two a week, and I will do that. I've scheduled it out so I'll finish by the end of the year. So I'll continue to be working on this. Honestly, not much to say about the stories I've read recently. I mean, I still love the writing. It's lovely. It was interesting reading, I think it was The Physician's Tale. Yes, The Physician's Tale I actually had read before, but I had totally forgotten about it. So when I started reading, I was like, this feels very familiar. And then I realized why, because I actually had read it for a class before and just had totally forgotten. So anyway, read that. I'm on The Pardoner's Tale. So I'll be reading The Pardoner's Tale and The Wife of Bath this week. So that will probably be a little bit more, hopefully, in my next vlog. Don't think the next vlog is actually going to be themed. Sorry about that. I'm going to try to get myself to do a themed reading vlog eventually. I mean, I'm doing my Middlemarch vlog, so I'm at least doing like a single book reading vlog right now. My thing is, I read slow enough and I am enough of a mood reader that it's a little bit intimidating to me to do a themed TBR. Not that that's going to stop me. I just need to come up with themes and ideas for TBRs that will provide enough variety that I can keep to it. So we'll see how that goes. There's one themed vlog that I already have planned first thing next year. You will be seeing that announcement soon. I think actually you'll see that announcement probably, either it's already out, or, which if so I will link it down below, or it is about to come out. I can't remember exactly when I had it planned. So anyway, all that to say, loved Elantris. I'm going to close this vlog here. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, your thoughts on them, and I think that will do it. So I hope you are having a wonderful reading week, a happy holiday season, and I will see you next time. Bye!